Hello and how are you? Welcome to our session of our second lecture. We are going to resume from the previous lecture. Where I was stopped in the previous lecture, sorry. And today we are going to look at another important thing in that programming, and that is object-oriented programming. Object-oriented programming is very useful architecture that we use when creating systems or softwares or applications, in a way that you're able to define a structure of a certain data or data type, and you put all the things that you might need to use on that particular structure of data or that type of data in one function. In one class, okay? Or you can put them even in one file. So things don't mix up, because when you do bigger or large systems, the way how you organize your code will really matter. So with that much said, let's go straight and we learn object-oriented programming. So I would like you to be very attentive, because it is very important. If you don't get the concepts of object-oriented programming, you're going to suffer when you proceed. So let's put all our ears and eyes here for just 1 hour, and then we shall go and do anything that we want. All right. So let me start. Okay. So as I've said, that is an object-oriented programming language. It's an object-oriented programming language. It supports object-oriented programming features like classes, interfaces. A class in terms of object-oriented programming is a blueprint, what we call a structure, for creating objects. So before we proceed, let me first explain this. So we have two things. We have an object, and then we have a what? Sorry. We have an object, and then we have we have a class, and then we have an object. If you know, in Luganda there's something called akativa. Akativa kebakubisa amatafali. If you know Luganda, that kind of thing that you use to manufacture bricks, that frame that you use to manufacture bricks, in Luganda call it akativa. So it defines how a brick should be looking like. If you are going to make, let's say, pavers or tiles or maybe ventilators, we must first define that frame or that structure that is going to be used to lay things of the same design. In Uganda, we call it akativa. So a class is akativa. That structure is what we call a class. So you can say my class is a class called animal. It will have a name. It will have maybe its age, and it will have its sex. There are 3 parameters that I'm going to be recording about an animal. There you have defined the structure, or what calls the akativa. So you're not going to save there something that is going to have more than those parameters that you have defined. Hope we are together. Hope we are understanding each other. Okay? Even though you already know these things, but try to be attentive. Maybe you can remind yourself one or more things. So in simple terms, that's what we meant by what? By a class. Now, you've created a structure. Okay? Or what you've declared a class. That's what we call declaring a class. Sorry, I'm explaining these things, so I might not following the write-ups exactly, but they are what actually they mean. Now, Omazeo call akativa, you finished creating that structure. Okay? Now you're going to make bricks. Now you're going to lay bricks. They can be 2 bricks, they can be 20, they can be 100 bricks. Okay? Or you're going to lay maybe ventilators of that design of your car frame, of your frame. So they can be 20 ventilators, they can be 100 ventilators. Now, the point is, those ventilators that you're going to lay, they are the one that we call objects. You create one katiba and you lay 100 bricks. You create one class and you can use that one class to create maybe 1000 or 100 objects. So a brick is an object. A class is the frame that's used for making a brick. Okay? So whatever the frame defines, the object will be dancing, or it will be dancing to whatever the frame defines. It will be complying to whatever the frame defines. So the frame is a class, the brick is an object, and so many other examples. So you declare one type of one structure of a class, and then you can use it to make as many as possible, as many as you want objects. So why do you need a class? To make things be in the same shape. Okay? To make things organized. Imagine they ask you to create 1000, or let's say they ask you to create 100 what? Pavers, or 100 ventilators without a structure. Just do 100 ventilators. In one or the other, you'll find it a little bit hard, actually hard, to create ventilators of same design. But if you have a class, you first declare a class. If you have that katiba and declare it once, you can use it to do what? To define as many bricks or objects as possible, as you want, because you already have a blueprint. How we called it here, what is the word? Blueprint. Okay, it's a plan for something. So I hope we now understand why we need classes. A class shall define a class of a product, and then we define the things that should be in a product. Something that is outside that we don't need. So it will make us things simple to define objects of a product and then put their things in simplicity. Alright? Okay, so we proceed. So we'll have to first define a class. Then after defining a class, then we make it to be in use by using what? By creating what? Creating objects. So from a class we shall get objects. Okay? So I hope you can memorize that. If you don't have to understand, you can still memorize it. Later you'll understand. From class we create objects. Now this is how we define a class in Dart. Just simply put a class name and then open curly bracket. We first begin with the word class, okay? Okay, with the keyword class, and then followed by what? By the name of the class, and then followed by the structure of that class, the things that you actually need in that class. So the class keyword is followed by the class name. The rules for identifiers must be considered naming a class. So in naming a class, you have to define a few things. You are not going to name a class that is going to begin with a number, like one person. No. There are some rules that you have to define, just like those ones. A class is not going to have a name between it, something like that. So a class definition can include the following: fields. So fields, sometimes we call them properties. These are variables that you declare within the class. Okay? You call them properties, or you can call them fields. So if you say I'm defining a class of a subject, maybe you're creating a school management system. A subject should be having a name, should be having a teacher, you should be having a pass mark, you should be having whether it is optional or not optional. So that word subject name is what we call field or property. A class can have getters and setters. So a setter is a function that you create to allow one way of setting things. So for example, you may create a class called person, and then this person has maybe a name. I mean, this class person has name and an age. Now you create a setter for age. So a setter for age, you can say
recording in progress.
Members, are you getting me? Members, are we together? Hello? Are we together, members? Can you hear me? Are we following? I hope you're following, members.
Yes.
Alright, so I was explaining that setters, you can set rules and say, when I am defining a name, it should have these properties. It should be having more than, the name should be having maybe more than 3 characters. You should not be having a number in it. You should not be having a free space. So you set those rules according to your application. So if you want your class to be having one get where this name will first be checked before they are saved or before they proceed, so you can create what you call a setter for that. So when someone is defining, when someone is trying to save a name, it first passes through that setter requirements. If it doesn't, you can throw an error. Okay. So getter, it will be used for getting items. All right. For example, if the names are saved in one way, you can say when I'm sending back the data, if the names are maybe even saved in small letters or capital letters, I want to send it to what? In capital letters only. So you can create a getter. It will be the only get that will be allowing data to pass through from your data to objects. I mean, from the class, from the object outside outside the project. So you can do whatever you want to do with that data by the use of getter. Then you have constructors. Constructors they are the functions that are called when we are declaring. When we are doing what? When we are defining an object. So you can create a what? You can create a constructor and put their conditions. So you say that when someone is defining a person, they must provide us their name and their phone number and maybe the age. And then maybe other parameters are optional. So you create a getter. So when someone will be trying to create, you create a constructor. So when someone will be trying to create an object of that particular item, it will be made compulsory for them to specify the data that you'll have put in your constructor, or the rules that you have put in your constructor. Then lastly, we have functions. Functions, sometimes we call them methods. All right. So functions are we create them within the class, and then we use them to do operations that are based for that class or that are meant for that particular class. For example, you can create a class of called person, a person. All right. So this class will have maybe age calculator. So this age calculator will have, it will be a function that will be in the class of a person. So you can say this age calculator, its task will be calculating the age of a person. All right. So when you're calculating the age, this method will be working only on that particular object. It will not be accessed outside that particular class. So it will help you to organize your things. Let's say that you have maybe an accounting module within your project, you have maybe human resource, you have maybe finance module, you have maybe security module, maybe you have attendance module. So these are different modules within your project. But by the use of a class, you'll be able to know that, okay, my functions about accounting, I put them only in the accounting class or accounting classes. My functions about human resource, such as get salary amount, whatever, you put them in the what? In the object of what? In the classes of human resource. So in a class, you can even define there a function that is just relevant to that particular class. So to put these things together, you can look at this example. It's called a car, class called car. It has a structure of an engine, and then it has a function called display engine, and that will be used like that. Now let's go ahead and do a practical example for this object-oriented programming. Okay, shall look at constructors, shall look at all those. All right, so I'm going to create here another file. I'm going to call it number 13. Okay, introduction OOP. That, so I put here, main. Now let's go ahead and define our first class. So to define a class, we just simply write class. All right, so this class can have default values, can have whatever. So now let's say it's a contact, so you can just go ahead and say, let me define step by step. You can just simply say contact So I hope you're watching how I define a class. Just simply say class and then the name of the class. So you're advised to start with class names. Start class names with what? With a capital letter. Alright? And then go ahead and put curly bracket. And then go ahead and do like this. So this contact we can have. I'm going to explain all these. Don't worry. I'm going to explain it. So we can say that when you're defining a contact, this contact is going to have first name. Last name is going to be optional. It's going to have other name. And then we go ahead and say it will have a phone number, an email, and what? And address. Alright? So that is how we define a class. So it means that we can create, before we even go to constructors, let me first comment these. So let's just focus on these ones, okay? So you can say first name is just by default is empty. So let me remove other name, put phone number and email. Maybe address also. Remove this. So members, you see that? So those are what we call properties. I can even go ahead and define another different data type and say, for example, integer, say age, right? That's another data type. And maybe we can define, for example, double what? Or void. So you see, that is a class of a contact, all right? So this is our Katiba, if you still remember our example. This is a structure of something. I mean that now we can use this structure to create as many objects as we want. We can use this structure to organize our data in this kind of what? In this kind of a way. So now let's say that we want to create one contact. So we are done with declaring. Now we go to implementing. So to implement a contact, I'll just simply come here and say so I just to implement a contact, we just begin with the class name. followed by the name of the variable. Okay, so I can say contact1, say C1 equals to contact. So by doing like that, it will go ahead and define for me the contact in that way. All right. Now, let's say I want to display this contact. So I can just simply say print and then go ahead and say, for example, first name. I go ahead and put it there. First name, I go ahead and put first name. So you see how we access the contacts. You see how we access the data of an object. So this C1 is an object. All right, that's what you call an object. So you just simply dot, you put dot to access the data of an object. Let's go ahead and display these ones. All right, so if I go ahead and run this, I'll be able to see. So let's go ahead and do print and say 13 dot that. So you see, sorry, not print, that, right? That, it is 13, sorry. That.oop. So I hope you can see that, members. I hope you can see that we are able to declare something and then print it. Now, you can see that there is no data in these what? In these values. So to define the data, it is very simple. Just simply come and put here dot. Put dot name, you'll get the name. You'll be able to save there the first name, save there the last name. Put C1, for example, dot what? Dot phone, put there the phone, and then say C1 dot what dot address, put there the address. Can put there the age, you can put there the weight. So you see, everything that we are doing it on one particular what? On one particular object. And it helps us to keep our things well organized. All together, members. It makes us to keep our things well organized. So if I go ahead and run this, so you see, did I save? I did not save, I think. Members, I hope you can see that. I hope you can see that. So this one is far more better than keeping the variables separately. Okay? I hope you understand that, members. Are we following, members? Are we understanding? Members, are you there? Okay. I can see in the chat you're saying that you're understanding. That is good if you're understanding. All right, so let's proceed. Okay, let us proceed. Now, I've looked at how to define objects and how to define what? Data in the class. Now, we proceed. Now, you see that we are facing a challenge of defining sorry. We are facing a challenge of printing these things separately. Sorry about that. Just a second, members. Just a second. Okay. So now we go to another thing called functions. So functions, or what you call methods, they help you to define relevant functions within the class. Now we see like displaying this function. I mean displaying the information of a person. Why can't we just define it inside the what? Inside the class. So when we want to display a function, we just call it on what? On an object. So to do that, I can just simply cut this. Let me remove this. Alright, and then I go to what? To a class. Okay. Inside the class, I can define a function called display contact. So inside that function, I go ahead and put the content that object. So now just see, to display the things that are inside class, I don't need to do like the way we are doing here by putting c dot whatever dot something. You can just display it by just simply calling like this. All right, you just call the variable what? The variable name. Hope you can see that. We just call the what? The variable name, and then you'll be able to do what? To display. All right, you'll be able to access that particular variable on an object. Let me repeat. If you want to access variable on an object within a class, you just simply call its name. You'll be able to do that to display it. I mean to access it. So it means that here, if I want to display, I'll just call this. So if I run this, let me ask you, by the way, why am I teaching myself alone? I want you to observe these things. Let me remove this. So I'm going to ask you something, members. I'm going to ask you something. You observe this. Just I'm giving you 5-10 seconds to observe this. Can you observe that? Have a main function. We're defining a contact. Have contact and then defining the contact. I mean the contact class, and then we have display function. Now, if I run this file, I repeat. If I run this file, can you explain to me what's going to be displayed or what's going to happen in the console when I run this file? Now let me get your answers. Let me see. All right, so Edwin, open your microphone and tell me what's going to happen in the console when I run this project. That's the whole class. That's the whole file. You can see it on the screen. Edwin Rakasisi, open your microphone.
Hello?
Yes, explain to me what's going to be this. What's going to show? I mean, what's going to be displayed in the console when I run this class?
When you run this class,
I mean, sorry, when I run the file. When I run the file, yeah.
when you run, I don't think there's anything that will happen because we are not calling the display contact method.
Are you sure?
I'm saying we are creating the object. After creating the object, then we initialize all the fields, but I'm not seeing us calling the C1 dot display contact method. So
Okay.
I think it doesn't display anything.
Okay, thank you for your submission. Hilal Serunjoji, open your microphone and tell us what's going to happen in the console. Hilal, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Can you tell us, please?
It's going to be displayed.
Oh, sorry?
Nothing's going to be displayed in the console.
So you also agree with the Serun George. I mean, sorry, with the Edwin. Okay, so let's see. We're going to run it and we see. Assume Patricia, you're there?
Yes, sir.
What's going to happen when I run this file?
So you have put the print statements within a function that we have not yet called, so nothing will happen.
Okay, then lastly, thank you, Asimu. Patricia, sorry. Lastly, Atweta, Arinda, Asimwe. Tell us what's going to happen when we execute this file. Your voice is very low.
The print statement in a function and we're not calling the function in the main.
So
nothing is going to display when we run the program.
all right, thank you, Atweta. All right, yeah, so you're right. So I'm happy to see that you members, you're following at least. Okay, that's good. You got it right. So if I run it, nothing will happen. Beautiful. You see, nothing happened. Why? Because I'm not called. So here the whole point is I can now call this guy. Okay, on an object. So if I want to display this object, I'll just simply put here and call it like this. So by calling like that and I run it, now it will go ahead and display this particular person. Okay, yeah, so that's the whole point. All right, I'm happy to see that you members you're following. So now you now know how. So this is what you call methods. You can implement all what we've been doing on this particular function, and you can implement what we've been doing in methods in this particular things classes. Now let's look at different ways of how you can effectively do things. I'm going to teach you just most important tricks and techniques. So I can just simply come here and we create a list of objects. So I can just simply come and say our list. So when you define a list, you specify here it's a list of contacts. So you put a class here inside the square bracket. So it's going to be a list of contacts, and I can call it for example contacts. Okay, and then I can go ahead and add there dot add. I go ahead and add and add C1 for example. Go ahead and define C2. Okay, come here and define C2. Okay, and then I add it in our list. So just simply say contacts dot add. All right, then let's define the third one. Let's define the third person, C3. And then we add it to our list. Now we can display these things by looping through them. So you see, hope you're following. Defining then you say this dot for each. So that's another method in what? In that programming, you can just simply say dot for each. However, this method you cannot break it to loop forever. So you see, I'm calling this method as I'm displaying. So for each, it will take a contact. You'll be waiting for the contact, and then let me show you how it is defined. Just get a list, whatever list that you're using. Write the word for and then each like this. Call it for each. Inside that, open bracket, again open bracket, and come here and put curl bracket. Then put here how you want to receive the contact, and just simply say contact. I want to receive it like this. Put a semicolon at the end. Alright? So in here, you'll be able to receive your contact when it loops. Okay? So here, we shall be able to display all the contacts at once. So if I come here and run that, you see, I'm able to display the contacts in that way. Alright, so let's look at abstracts. Now, what if I have age to be private? So to make something to be private in that programming, we just simply put an underscore. Okay, we put an underscore, so it will not be accessible outside. Private in that. Do you have it anyway? I hope so. All right. So I'd like to share another important thing. So that's how we define things and add them into a list and declare them like that. Let's look at constructors. So we said constructors, it is a method that must be called when a function is being created. Okay, so we can create a constructor like this by just simply creating a class name, exactly class name, and then we give it parameter that it must have. So if you want someone to be providing us first name and phone number at least to create an object, so we just simply go ahead and do that. Say we just create, you see the class name, we create a function of it with a class name like this. So you go ahead and put for example, say first name say first name, or you can just simply put this dot first name. So by doing so, it means that when someone provides this first name, it will be saved automatically in the first name. However, you can receive them and do with them something else later by doing like this. Okay, open it as a curly bracket and then receive what you want, and then do maybe either data cleaning or maybe validation, and be able to throw an error where necessary. But here is that when someone will be creating this class, they must provide the data that you're asking for. That is what you call constructors. So let me put here, for example, I may say that this dot first name. So I mean that if I do like this, that first name will be automatically saved in the first name section. Alright, so I can say I want first name, I want last name. Okay, I want first name and last name. I mean, I want first name and phone. Those are the two most important things. So it means that now when we'll be declaring someone, you see it is now throwing an error. I must provide at least their what? Their first name and their phone number. Okay, so let me remove this. First name and phone number. You see? So that's how we shall be defining. So you see it's now here causing an error. Why? Because we're not providing what constructor is asking for. So that's how we do constructors in that programming. So if I run it, Right, so are we looping? So as we are looping, I want to display like this. You see, it is very nice. Okay, so let's look at what we call static methods. So static method here, you can only call this one on an object.
What
is that? Can you mute your microphone? So this one can only be called on an object that has been created. Now, you can possibly create a method that can be accessed even outside the what? Even outside the class. Alright? For example, we can say we want a function that will be will be converting age to integer. So I can come and define it here and say static. So if you're defining a static function, just begin that static. I say age to int. That's the use of this function. So since this static function is going to be used even outside the what? Even outside the class. So it means that it is not going to have an access to the variable within that class because it is a public thing. You can call it within on an you can call it outside an object. So it doesn't belong to a specific what? Object. So such kind of a class, we call it static class. So for it does not have direct access to the data of that object. So it means that you have to provide with it some data. That's why, see, we have to put there, for example, age, and then it passes it to integer, and then returns. All right. So that is it. So it means that I cannot come here. So if it has this word static, it means that I cannot come here and do this. All right. That is not acceptable. Why? It's because this one is static. It does not belong to any object, even though it is within the class of that particular object. So how do you access it? You access it by just simply getting the class name and then come and put double colon. Class name, then dot. I'm writing PHP in that. And then put dot and then specify what you want to the parameters. Okay, so I can say, for example, age equal to. So after defining my age, for example, here I can, for example, convert it to say age equal to and then I say contact dot age to int, and then go ahead and pass there dot to string age. Let's say, for example, had 3.3332. Let's say wait. Age, we did it in what? In double. It is not allowing us. Okay, let's say, for example, wait equals to, I get the same way that I've just defined here. Come and pass it here. Display it here. So if I run this file, having an error, you can, so this is int parse. So I can just simply say, for example, age. Okay, sorry. So I split and I get the first thing, and they say got age, and they say get age, and then int parse here. Int is not type of a double. Alright, you're returning an integer. So all right, so you can say, you can call this function, for example, remove decimal point. All right, that's the name of the function, just for purposes of learning. All right, so I can put here maybe p. So here I split whatever p. So I do the logic of removing, and then I say that what. So it maybe be returning double. So if I want to be promising what to return, you just write it here, and then I say double, static double, and then I go ahead and say go ahead and say double dot parse. Why is it crying? Okay, let's be converting to integer. Just want to demonstrate this example so you can understand. Sorry, I have to put there the class name. Remove double. Let me put here the class name. Remove double. Remove decimal points. I'll just put the remove dp. So it will go ahead and split, remove the first value, and go ahead and say double dot pass, and then get this one and return. So yeah, so if I come here and I run it, ouch, not remember to int, sorry, I've not defined this. They have an error here, so let me come here and change it. So you see this double of hours of Rwanda, it has 0.5. So if you come here, dot run, it has removed the double. Anyway, don't mind about the logic. It is working, but the main point that I want to communicate here is the point of having static methods. Static method, you can be able to access it. You cannot be able to access it on a particular object, but you can access it through the class name, and it can be available for other methods. Also, another thing that you should note, that if the non-static functions are having direct access to the data, however, here I cannot just simply say a name, for example, name equals to whatever. It is going to throw an error. Why? Because it is static. It is not mainly for this particular object, so it has no access to what? To data. Yep. So that's brief about object-oriented programming. You can go ahead and learn more about OOP. But basically, that's all you need. That's what you need to not get started. So I'll receive questions before we go to a break, an indefinite break. All right, members, any questions? I'll look at your work today. Any questions, members? So that's what you need to know about object-oriented programming. Can we get some questions if they are there?